This is episode 3 of the brand new podcast called Is This a Pickleball Podcast with Matthew K. Pickleball. And you might notice this isn't my co-host Wilson. I gave him the day off. This is actually Matt Cox, the founder of ChorusPickleball. And so thank you for joining us today, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matthew. Appreciate it.
How are you doing? How's your morning going?
Pretty good. The PPA was in McKinney. I live in McKinney, Texas, so the Texas Open actually came to McKinney this time. And so I play at courts of McKinney all the time. So it was kind of surreal to see all of the PPA hoopla and the pros and stuff, like just literally a mile and a half from my house. Because I've been to PPA tournaments before, so I've played tournaments, and you see the pros walking around. It's a really fun time. But to have it kind of in your home court was kind of, it was just a real experience. It was really fun. But I'm also just like, my body is trash because I played Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Did not go great. I don't know why I cannot do as well and play as focused as I do in like leagues or open plays or fun play. When it comes to tournament, man, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I go from a 4-0 to a 3-0. It's fun. It's really fun.
Well, I totally get that. I really do focus on the rec play stuff, the tournament stuff. I've got some reasons I'm trying to do that this year, but I just try to keep pickleball as fun as possible. And the tournaments, that sort of stuff, hasn't really been what I wanted to do, but sure. It's changing. But actually, you won't believe this, that was my first question about your weekend. I actually knew about the PPA stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then, so I did want to ask you, as someone that does do competitive play, since I'm not one of those folks, I'm hoping of our 4 or 5 listeners, there's some people interested in competitive play. And so, yeah, you sort of touched on it, but did you take anything away from this weekend? Do you have any advice for people wanting to play on bigger stages that they might find helpful? It sounds like you might have struggled this weekend. Do you think that's a mindset thing, or is there something you took away from this experience that you're going to bring to your next one? Or are you like, I'm done with the tournament play?
No, I think there's a lot of things. I actually enjoy competition. Like for me, again, like I love pickleball because so many different styles of play and skill can find enjoyment. Like that's the beauty of our sport. But I do find fun in competition when there's just something at stake. I think when I first started out doing tournaments, I get conservative. Like, I know my penchant for being too aggressive too early. And so a lot of times I will go into tournaments and just try to just play soft or just play conservative. But the problem is that's actually not leaning into my style of play. So I need this one. Honestly, this is the first tournament where I felt like I went in and actually played my style. And then I did the soft game. Like, I tested people on really powerful drives on my thirds just to see if they could handle it. And when you're playing 4-0, you start to that seems to be the dividing line when people are either still doing banger ball and finding some success because they're accurate doing banger ball, but you also start to see all of the people playing, I don't want to say playing real pickleball, but you know what I mean? Like, they're really trying to get to the kitchen, to set up the high ball, frustrate the other side with patience, look for the high ball, and then put it away, right? Like, so that you really see that between 4-0 and 4-5. Because when I play 3-5 to 4-0 tournaments, it's largely banger ball, right?
Yeah.
We're in DFW. And that's another thing I've learned, too, is that regionally, 3-5 and 4-0 means something completely different in completely different states. Like, there's an example, like a friend of mine has come from, like, the Midwest, where it's not a huge pickleball area, and they're like a 4-4 or a 4-3, and came down to DFW, and it was like the 3-5s are like giving trouble. So it's just very interesting. But I don't know. I actually do enjoy it. I think I did better this time, just taking my game and being more patient. But I was still attacking balls early. because I just wanted to get ahead, just have to get ahead. So patience is the big takeaway, I would say.
Patience, and then, you go into a tournament and you lean into the style of play that you practice, and maybe just be true to yourself, and then maybe augment a little bit, it sounds like.
No, and I think what the other takeaway is kind of what you said, is like, it's okay to lean into your style, because sometimes we equate trying to get better at pickleball, meaning with ignoring your instincts or ignoring the thing you like to do, but rather it's fine to have a style you like, but learn when to do those things.
Sure.
And you still have to learn the fundamentals of the advantages of getting to the kitchen as well. So it doesn't mean you forget the types of style you want to play, but learn where it's placed in the realm of an entire game. Yeah,
I think when you start a game, figure out what kind of game you're in, and then when you're in a tournament, it's deciding if you're going to do the drops or if you're going to do the rec play bang. And I totally down in the comments, folks, what do you think about Matt's take on regional 3540? I know out here in LA, 3540, it's got some competitive play, but so let us know what you think in the comments. Is your region a 3-5-4 where the 3-5 players are playing 4-0, or are you in a sweet spot region? Let us know. And then now that we've sort of established, Matt, that you're an actual pickleball player, that you're a lover of the game, hopefully everyone listening, can you tell us how'd you get into being a paddle company? What's that transition? I know there's a bit of a story, so I'm sure you've done the elevator pitch a bit, but our listeners, I'm sure, would love to hear sort of how'd you fall into, or how did you get into becoming a paddle company as well?
Yeah, one of somebody I met recently that I told my story to used the phrase accidental business, and I kind of like that. It kind of gets to how we started. I did everything intentionally, but there was never an initial intention to do Chorus as a business or have anything called Chorus. So the quick version is when I first got into pickleball, it really changed my health outlook completely, just because there was no physical activity I was willing to do because everything was boring or completely inaccessible. I love baseball, but there's not a lot of pickup open plate baseball happening in McKinney, Texas. And if it's not happening in Texas, it's definitely not happening anywhere else. So I love tennis, but again, it's kind of the same thing. There's not just, you have to find somebody around your skill spectrum to make it fun for either party, right? So not a lot of that happening. Anyway, Emily, my wife, bought me an Onyx Z5 for Christmas. 2 Christmases ago now? 3 Christmases? I don't know. And I went and played pickleball. And I got injured on the very second day of playing pickleball that put me out for 3 months. But I picked it back up. And just love the game. I love the social aspect of it. I love meeting all types of people. It's wild. When you see other people having fun or experiencing joy, that stuff is contagious. And so you're also having fun. And so I was starting to okay, what's the next sort of paddle? I didn't know anything about paddles at that time. So I got a Selkirk Power Air. I got a Vatic Pro Prism Flash. And then I started getting into paddle reviewers. And so I really started nerding out on paddle stuff. And so I had this collection of paddles just that I'm never using anymore. And then people were like, oh, you're into pickleball. I've always meant to try pickleball. And so I started just giving away paddles. And it's hey, I'll give you a paddle if you just promise to use it at least once. And if you don't like pickleball, just promise me you'll just pass it on to somebody else. So it was a completely just effort to just I want to get people to have a taste to see if they will get addicted like I do, because it just brought so much joy to my life. But that got expensive because, again, when I'm starting to buy things like Power Airs and spending over $200 on paddles, I'm I can't just keep giving these things away. So that's when I, learned how to make a paddle. I just want to make a cold press paddle that was made of carbon fiber and polypropylene core. So all of these people buying the 4-pack, the Amazon 4-pack for $30. That's like the thin, like sheet metal, whatever it is, and some of them have like wristbands, like it's a Wii remote. So it's wild. So I got 200 of these made. I learned like the basics of sandwich layup. Got 200 of these made. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to start giving these away for free. Like, that's what I wanted to do. Spread the joy of pickleball, giving away free paddles. Wasn't a business idea. But then I was like, okay, I'm getting the hang of this, and I'm really grokking, like, how the materials work together and what material Legos are available. And I was like, I want to build something for myself that is still really pillowy soft for dinks and kitchen stuff as I'm learning, so I can have a lot of control. But from the baseline and for overheads, I needed something that also could just give me a little extra oomph that at the time I wasn't really feeling from a wide variety of paddles that I played. So that's when I started doing the Shapeshifter research and product development and prototypes and stuff. And then I was like, well, time to do a minimum order of 200 because that's the low bar of entry with the partner factory I was working with. And I'm like, you know what? I am not going to use 200 paddles in my lifetime, no matter how hard I am playing. So that was the first time I was like, well, this is more of an elevated paddle experience. This is not something I'd start people with immediately, so I'm not going to give it away. So I might as well just kind of like figure out how to put up some sort of easy shop or something and just sell it to people who might, like it if they play with it. But that took root, and I was like, okay, fine, let's just do the whole thing. Let's do the logo, let's figure out a brand just because, in case. And so then I got on Shopify and realized how easy it was to make a store with the robust tools and stuff. And so I just made a brand out of it. And I was like, all right, it's a business now. And then we launched in March 20, which is 3 days. Within 3 days, it'll be our birthday from when we're recording anyway. So you might actually already be on the day of the birthday. Doesn't matter, whatever. And then, our sales went fairly well for being a brand new company in a very crowded market. Like you could get your paddles approved for like a chewing gum wrapper, like at that point. So, no, we launched with the Daylight, the Echo, the old G, the OG, Echo, and then the Shapeshifter. And then, of course, John Q. I sent it to a bunch of reviewers. John Q. picked it up, really liked it, mained it for 4 months. Did a review. Like, that's when we really shot up and were able to start a bunch of other stuff. So it's like a medium version of the story, but yeah, it wasn't intended to be a business at first.
Well, Matt, you covered a lot in that. Couple of things that I want to dig into, and we're going to talk all about everything. But first off, I think people are probably listening or watching and are like, this guy wanted a paddle for his own style, and instead of going out and buying every paddle, it sounds like you did that too, but you wanted something super specific. He went out and figured out how to work with a factory in China and made his own paddles, and then that led to a company. And that story, I think people just take a moment, let that sink in. This person is crazy that we're talking to today, and it's a good crazy. But I'm just curious, like, is there something in your background that sort of like I would not know where to begin to like reach out to a factory or a broker. So is there something? Are you a logistics person? Do you start businesses? Is there something in your background that sort of helps you have the knowledge or just the courage to do this, or is it just is your life experience nowhere touching this, and so just naivete is what empowered you? So what was the thing that launched you to even do this endeavor?
So I don't have a background in logistics or even materials engineering. I love math. I'm a math nerd. I love I like seeing Legos and equations and understand how everything can put together. But I've always been fascinated by Legos without instructions, right? So I would much rather have like 4 Lego sets where you're missing a bunch of pieces that have just been in this like ghost bucket, and then you just pour it out on a table. And that's what I like. It's like, what can I build myself that's not there? So I've always been that kind of minded person. Now, what some people don't know is that I still have a full-time day job. Like, Chorus has turned into another full-time job at night and in the margins, which this year, you know, we're looking into other things to help alleviate that extra part of it at night. Anyway, no, I was a journalism major. Okay. In college. Like, I had the highest math scores on like my ACT. I got scholarships for math, and my English was the lowest. So at the time, like, this is how weird I am. Instead of going into engineering or something where math would be a huge help, I went into journalism because my English scores were not great on my tests. So it's like I really needed to sharpen my English skills. So that's why I got my degree. Also, I wanted to be a music reviewer for like Rolling Stone and Spin. And for those of you who were born in the 2000s, Rolling Stone and Spin are magazines that actually came in paper. These things is not stuff on a screen.
Don't worry. YouTube tells me all of my audience are in their later 30s, so don't worry.
Oh, okay. So yeah, everybody knows what actual magazines are. It's wild. So you say magazine, people think literally a site or a PDF, like, because magazine just means everything means online. Whatever. Obviously, I'm way older than I am. Okay,
but it sounds like curiosity is something that's always been a part of your engine, and then being obsessed with numbers, you weren't fearful of pinging a factory in China.
Yep.
All right.
I was looking for any clue, and I have no shame. That's the other thing. Like, I'm not embarrassed by much, so I'm not embarrassed by my lack of knowledge. And this is something that interests me, so I'd rather just jump into the deep end and learn and swim.
Awesome. Well, I think that's kind of a good transition to. There are two other things I want to dig out of what you said before, which is. You are coming up on your 1-year birthday from releasing the OG Chorus Shapeshifter, which you already highlighted was super popular with a lot of reviewers last year. I have a review on this on my channel as well for your OG line. Not John Q number reviews, but this is a paddle that tons of people loved, and it sort of was unique for having the 18K, the cubic surface. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it just has a very unique surface that also affects ball feel. And so what I wanted you to walk us through, because it's going to lead to the next thing I want to talk about, is what's your prototyping process? Because I have an idea just because of what I know is coming up this week. So walk us through how you go about making one of your paddles, and then just a heads up, we're actually going to walk through the line a bit. So just give us broad strokes. Okay. How do you go? You want to make a paddle. You're a numbers person. You're not afraid of embarrassing yourself. You don't mind emailing the factories in China. So what do you do?
So with my knowledge of what surfaces, or not just surface layers, but what the actual layups do and what the characteristics of, say, fiberglass, T700 or T300, and all of the different types of what I saw Legos available, I basically start mixing and matching. So I take my knowledge of what those surface layers are supposed to give with regard to ball feel and performance, and then decide which layers they go on, which at first sounded crazy. What is it? It's so very close together. How is that actually going to make any sort of difference with how thin they are and just slightly changing their position? But I found out very, very quickly that it matters a lot, just the position it is on the layup. And it still blows my mind how different paddles can play. So really the prototype process in broad strokes is, okay, I think it's going to act like this, so let's try this layup. Let's try this type of core at this weight, because there's weights, and they call them grades. And grades doesn't necessarily mean quality. It literally just means weight sometimes. And And then with my partner factory, I have them make about 2 or 3 copies of a certain thing, so I can have a few on hand to make sure they play consistently. And they make them within a couple weeks, and they send them express, so I don't have to wait a ton of time for it. I play with them a lot. I hit them hard. Have my buddy, like Brian from Graffiti, has been one of my biggest sounding boards, and he's my drilling partner. So he's a really great guy to help me like be a sounding board on prototypes. And sometimes, and I'd say this is worth it. I promise. This, I know it's not broad stroke, but so many times I have gotten so excited about a paddle, and I'm like, have him play with it for a couple games. I'm like, all right, what you think? And 9 times out of 10, Brian would be like, feels like a paddle. Oh. And it's like no other nuance and stuff. But there have been things where he's just like, oh, why is nobody making this? And that's one of the reasons why the OG SuperCourt came to be. But whatever, we'll get into that. But anyway.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah,
so it sounds like, so for everyone watching and listening, Matt sort of highlighted, and I'm sure you all know this if you're listening to this podcast, but some of the biggest contributing factors to how paddles feel or play differently from one another are, one, the kinds of cores that are used in the paddles, and that can vary by let's speak about polypropylene, that can vary by the cell size of that polypropylene. And then one of the other biggest factors is the surface material, how it's layered, what materials are being used. And I can testify, and you will, the audience, you're about to know this too, Matt has tried a lot of combos, and it's very clear he's not only a numbers guy, but he's very obsessive numbers guy. And so I would say, I guess, firsthand that you've gone through a lot of prototypes. And what I love to hear, Matt, that really, this is my favorite kind of paddle company, is there's one person in the kitchen just trying out recipes and then eating the cake, eating the casserole, whatever, and seeing what it tastes like. And I love that there's a human being that's not just looking at factory specs. I want it to be 8.2 ounces. I want perimeter weighting, 8mm honeycomb core. You are trying different things, and you look at all of these elements, as you've said, as Legos. And I don't think a lot of paddle company owners that are starting out sort of look at paddles that way. I think oftentimes they go the safe route. They do just a copy of something that already exists and try to do a lower price point. I did a whole video about what I think a top tier paddle company is, and it's 2 things. First is they're budget oriented, and they are charging their customers something reasonable. The other thing is that they do that and are somehow also innovative. And
Sure.
Chorus is a great example of that, because all of your paddles or many of your paddles are super, super unique. And I think that just speaks to the process of how you're making them. And that has yielded, I imagine, a closet or a room full of a lot of prototypes. And so why don't we just jump right to it? This is your 1-year birthday coming up this week. I think this podcast is either going to drop day of or the day before. And
Sure.
So are you doing anything to celebrate? I know you are, but can you tell us what you're doing?
Yes. So in the spirit of giving away paddles, which is what we started with, our first birthday, it occurred to me that we should do that. So we are basically launching our Prelude program this way, and a Prelude is essentially a non-approved paddle, but it's almost like a formalized prototype. Like, here's a prototype we had, so we kind of formalized it and made a very, very small run and put some graphics on it, because they weren't this pretty. And then we're essentially giving these away at random for anybody who buys a paddle on March 20th. But I think we're going to just extend that offer throughout the following week. So if you buy a paddle while supplies last, starting on March 20th, you'll get an extra paddle, and there are 6 different Preludes that.
All right. So everyone, that is March 20th to March 26th. If you order a paddle from Chorus, they're going to send you one of their prototypes called a Prelude. This one here is the Muffin, Shapeshifter Muffin HX, I believe.
That's right.
And then I know there are some crazy ones. There's one that looks like Zach Morris would play with it in Saved by the Bell. That one's beautiful. I might have to order a paddle just to try to get that one. And then, so for all my paddle nerds out there, we've got. Let's first off, I love your names, Matt. If you have any more, be sure to throw them up on camera. But
sure.
We have a Fire Furia HX. That's going to be a 14 millimeter paddle, carbon fiber, fiberglass, carbon fiber with 10 millimeter wide cells. We've got a Fire Hawk EX, also 14 millimeter, but that's going to be Kevlar, carbon fiber, 3K deco weave, fiberglass, 3K, 10 millimeter wide cell core. So, okay, that one is one of the crazy ones. We have a SuperCourt Fresh EX, which is half diamond, 3K, carbon fiber weave, fiberglass, carbon fiber with normal.
That should be a SuperCourt.
SuperCourt Fresh EX. And then, Matt, you don't need a
this was a SuperCourt Fresh, yeah.
All right, yes. So, folks, there's some crazy paddles. He's got great names. We've got the name Night Striker. We've got the name Serpent. And I'm looking at the list right here, and they vary in cell size. They vary in layups. And you can tell everyone they vary in design. So definitely check that out. Celebrate Chorus's birthday and get yourself a gift, just like in the spirit of how Matt started out in pickleball, which was giving away paddles. Out of curiosity, are promo codes working for the sale?
Oh yeah, sure.
And folks, promo code Matthew K. Don't forget to use that. And we're going to probably talk a little bit more about that at the end. But I did want to just, on this podcast, I like to just walk through paddles. Maybe people are listening to this in their car. Maybe they can't see what we're showing, but I thought it would be fun to sort of walk through your line's history a bit and talk about where it's going. Like, this is your birthday, 1 year, you've done a lot. And so we've already talked about the OG Chorus Shapeshifter, and this was the orange variation.
Yep.
And once again, we've already highlighted, it got a ton of praise by reviewers last year, especially John Q. But this puppy is evolving. And so we've got a new version. And so can you just talk us through that process? You had a super popular paddle, but you didn't just sit on your laurels. You continued iterating. And so what walk us through your thinking on that, and sort of, are we going to keep seeing the OG, and walk us through what it evolved into?
Sure. I saw a need in the market where people prefer, obviously, wide bodies, or they prefer elongated. And so I wanted to grow Shapeshifter into a wider spectrum. So, because I have heard several anecdotes before, it's like, I don't like the hybrid size. So I'd rather, does this come in a wide body? Does this come in an elongated? So there's definitely a hunger and a market for that. So that's where I was like, all right, I needed to create our own drawings, our own shapes, because there was something for me personally. Again, a lot of these paddles ultimately become what I want to play with, and then I hope people like it too. So, which is not the greatest business plan, but you can't chase trends in this paddle market either, because it changes so quickly. And then, like, if I just go chase foam today because foam is the next big thing, I'm going to be late to market. So if I'm ever going to do foam, I better bring something that makes sense for me and something I want to play with. Anyway, I thought it was very important to have 3 different types of shapes to grow the Shapeshifter line. And then it took root, which sounds ridiculous that we're doing this, but I wanted to do that for everything else. Like, from now on, big paddle releases will come in all 3 shapes.
And so we have the Chorus's elongated shape. You have Chorus's standard shape, which I really love this shape. And then Chorus's new hybrid shape is squared off now, and it sounds like you wanted to just create 3 custom shapes that I imagine
from the ground up.
Course, like those are your shapes, and you own them, and I'm sure that relieved some anxiety on certain fronts. But anyway, but the OG hybrid. So we've got. Are there any other differences aside from the shapes sort of changing? And are we going to keep seeing this baby? I did love this shape, and I'm super excited to hit with these more. But what are the differences between the two? Because you had a super successful paddle, you changed the shapes, and I totally understand why. And are we going to keep seeing the OG? And what are the differences between the two? Aside from the shape,
we're going to keep making the OG. Like, people love the OG for all of its reasons, and so there's literally no reason to, fix something that's popular and that people love.
Okay, so if you want Coca-Cola Classic, it's still there, and then we got. Maybe that's not the best analogy.
Oh, no, I was tracking 100%.
But New Coke, which not everyone loved, but we got New Coke with the new line. But trust me, everyone, it's a tasty beverage. So, and so is that going to be the same core? And is that the same core and layup as the original, or were there tweaks?
So the short answer is absolutely yes. Like, I designed the HX shape because I found the arrow curve design lacking in twist weight per weight ratios, as well as the amount of sweet spot coverage that happens. Like, it looks pretty when you have the arrow curve design, and there's a lot of opinions out there. But again, this was more for me. It's like, I like the hybrid size, but I want more surface area. I still like the taper, but it tapers ever so slightly to move a little bit of the power or a little bit of the vibration node in the sweet spot up just a tad. But I just want a little bit more forgiveness, but also better twist weights out of the box per ounce. So I know you could just measure a twist weight of an OG and an HX. It's like, but the OG still has better twist weight. Well, there's a lot more like weight factors that go into that as well, depending on what you get out of the box. But the layup of Shapeshifter X series, the SX, HX, and EX, is the same as far as spirit. So it's the same exact 18K surface. We have a different reinforced carbon fiber in the middle, but it's still a reinforced T700 carbon fiber, slightly different grade. And then the bottom is a more reactive fiberglass compared to the fiberglass in the OG. But the OG's materials will be the exact same. So I'm not changing anything about the OG because, again, as most paddle nerds understand, and now especially manufacturers, just the smallest change in grades or placements or types of layers, they do make a big difference. So we recognize people love the OG, and some people have really gravitated to HX and all of the new shapes and love those better, but there are people who love the old ones. So we're happy to keep the OG around.
I love it. I love it. And just to be clear, this is a safe space. You can talk nerdy. It's okay. And I just wanted to highlight, though, one thing that Chorus does that's a little different is for their different lines, you guys have custom paddle covers, or for a lot of them. And I think that's a great touch. And I also know, if I was reading your bio before we were starting this conversation, and one of the things, I don't know if you remember this in your company about page, but one thing that you talk about is wanting to also do apparel, and it sort of is like what I think your apparel is sort of what you were describing. It seems like it's very based off of like what you or an actual human being would want to wear, rather than chasing like a trend or something. And in my last podcast, which everyone be sure to watch, because that one we go over some of what we're talking about in this podcast, which is how wide cells affect paddles. So definitely check that out. But in that podcast, I'm wearing your guys' awesome Chorus sweatshirt, old school
cool.
Chorus sweatshirt, no hood on it, and I think more companies need to do some sweatshirts without hoods, because we don't always need a hood, especially out here in California. But I got in a bit of trouble wearing one of your hats in a video, because there's someone in a Facebook group was not happy that I was promoting Chorus in a non-Chorus video. And but for me personally, first off, I love hats. If you send me a hat, I'm going to test it out just like any other piece of gear. And then the other thing is, I love to promote companies that I believe in any way I can. And I, as someone that also has worked in a space, I in film and TV, so different than what you're talking about as a paddle company owner, but I really understand how hard it is to get a business going, to get anything moving. And so I like to support companies that I think are doing good work. And so everyone check out their apparel, buy that hat, wear it in your review videos. Let's stir up the Facebook communities. And then you've already touched on this, but let's keep chugging along, because I want to talk. You had in your initial line, you had 3 different releases, and you had this little guy here, the Daylight. This was a 14 millimeter paddle. It was aimed at beginners. And I thought it was a great bang for your buck. I thought it was a great value paddle. It was one of my favorites of your initial line.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And so is this one gone? Is this one dead and buried? And why? I need to know why you've killed this baby. Like, what's happened?
I mean, I don't plan on making that Daylight. Let's just put it that way. I can't. I'm never gonna say never doing spray grit again, but like, I really don't want to. I'm not ready to talk about the plans yet. I won't call the Daylight dead. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
I think there is originally the Daylight is the main paddle that I gave away to people, right? Yeah. So there is still, obviously there's still that spirit. Obviously we're giving away prototype paddles just for people. So I think the Daylight didn't get its chance just because, one, we released it along 2 other paddles at the same time. Like releasing 3 models within 3 weeks is not great business, but that was fine because I really wanted people to pay attention to the Shapeshifter anyway. But there are like 4.0s and above that bought a Daylight that absolutely loved the Daylight. Nobody talks about it because obviously spray grit, Gen 1, like there's nothing technically cool to talk about. But my gosh, it is a fun paddle. It's a fun paddle. It
is. All right, so it sounds like while you have an expansive line, but you as a business owner are recognizing the market. It sounds like this was obviously a starter paddle. That space is pretty competitive. I do think like people that are doing their very first starter paddle, they don't know anything about companies. They just click buy now on Amazon. And so I can totally see why you would have to carve this out. But I'm glad to know that the Daylight might see daylight again in some iteration, because this was a super great budget paddle with some great performance. But you mentioned you released a 3rd paddle in that time frame, and that one I couldn't dig up, but the Echo, this is the new version of the Echo. But can you? No need to find the old one. Okay. It's all good.
It's like, hold on for 20 minutes while I go find it. I know there's somewhere.
Oh yeah, I'm the same. That's why my background
is there. It's hanging up there, and I'm like, I'll have to get a ladder.
We believe you, but that's why my background is blurred out, because this room is a mess. I'm sure it's Game of Thrones in here, and our throne is not swords but paddles, and it's right. Mayhem. But can you talk us through what the Echo was and what it is becoming? I know that you've shared some info already regarding the Echo's release. So just talk us through that so people know about that part of your line.
So Echo was intended to be a really good, less expensive option for a T700 thermoform paddle when we released it, but an elongated version. So we had the Daylight, which is a standard shape. We had the Echo, which was elongated but a short handle, and then the Shapeshifter, obviously a hybrid. So we kind of represented the three size spaces, but Echo was $119, $120 for a thermoform paddle with T700 on top and raw carbon with the peel ply grit. So that's what it was intended to kind of fill, to try to find its amazing value at that time for a thermoform T700, but still soft. Like, it was a still soft feeling paddle with a huge face. Like, it's elongated, but the handle's like 4.9 inches, I think is, but not that one, but like
not this one, but
the OG Echo is.
The OG one was also very, very beefy.
Yes. Yeah. It was so much surface area. And I think that's what people, again, there are a small, very vocal market that loves that specific paddle. But I also still, going forward, I want to bring our three shapes, our own shapes, to the Echo. So layup is the same. You're not going to get the same surface area because the handle is now 5.6 inches, but hopefully you're not going to hit down there close anyway. You still want to hit up where most of the sweet spot is. So I wanted to give that Echo treatment to a less expensive, amazing value T700 raw carbon fiber paddle. It's like,
okay,
not a lot of frills, but still something that people can enjoy and feel very linear, because it's all carbon fiber layup. You're not going to get an exponential boom at some level of power. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And that's what the Echo is essentially going to be known for in all sizes.
Awesome. So now, just real quick, yes or no, is the OG Echo for sales, or is that one done?
I think we just sold out of our Echoes.
Sold out, and so no more coming, right?
There are no plans to reorder that specific Echo now.
Fair enough. I think paddle companies are becoming more like wineries, where like you really have to, if you want a particular vintage, you have to stock up that year. Yes. It sounds like you came out with a very unique paddle, a layup that we hadn't really seen with the OG. Shapeshifter.
Yeah.
So many names. Shapeshifter, and then you wanted to offer a budget with the Daylight, super budget, and then the and then the Echo was a paddle that's a competitive, super competitive lane to be in, but Gen 2 paddle with a great carbon fiber surface, and now you've evolved that, and it's folding into your the three shapes.
Yeah.
And then soon after that, so riding high after John Q's review, got a lot of clicks, but you could have just sat on your laurels and pumped out. You could have just pumped out your line as it was. But after that, you came out with this little guy here, which I talked about in my overview, or I talked on my channel about this. This is about as unique as you could get when you drop this. This was a Gen 1 paddle with a super, super long handle that was tennis inspired, and for people that really wanted a two-hander. And for me, I'm not a big two-hander person, but I am a big whipping person. And if you want to be Indiana Jones out on the pickleball court, this was the paddle. Oh, and I wanted to highlight, you started experimenting with custom weight, and this is non-toxic, but was this tungsten? Silicone. So Matt is experimenting, talking to the factories about stuff outside of paddles, and this one you're still selling, correct?
Oh yeah, that's not going anywhere.
And
I think people would be very mad and show up at my door if I stopped selling the OG SuperCourt there.
Yeah, and so this is a really interesting paddle. If you guys get a chance to try this one out, definitely do it. It's Gen 1. But this thing's got some mayhem-like power behind it. It actually has some similarities, for me at least, to some of Paddletech's paddles. It's definitely a great budget paddle to check out. And then this one, it came with a crazy 70s tennis era headband, and it also came with a very cool, like, retro tennis inspired case. And I just need to highlight, Chorus is, I memean, this isn't an ad, but I just really appreciate that, like, there's unique stuff with when you buy from Chorus. Like, I guess we maybe have just some of the same sensibilities. We're probably like close in age, and I like seeing this throwback stuff, like the nostalgia. And so I think you got to have something unique to sort of draw people in to try or to take a chance on your company. And I appreciate that you're doing that. But you've now evolved that paddle into your 3 shapes. And why don't you tell us, how is this one, how are these different than the OG?
So the real quick one, obviously, those are the same shapes that we use for the other ones. The old long-handled SuperCourt has a much beefier handle where we reinforce the sides with fiberglass, so it doesn't feel, you can't touch the polypropylene since it's, a cold press. So it's a very low balance point for the OG. So for the new shapes, those are all thermoformed. It almost, and people have told me this, but that's okay. It almost didn't make sense that I called these paddles SuperCourt as well, because it's such a different one. My thinking there is that I wanted the original SuperCourt, try something new, but I also want to parlay the name. Like, it made a little bit of a name for itself. It's like, what is that? And then let that grow into a thermoformed version, because fiberglass was the middle layer. Like, that's kind of the main one of the main identifiers of a SuperCourt. Like, where Shapeshifter at the bottom layer is fiberglass, then fiberglass for SuperCourt is going to be the second layer down. So, but it's a CFC layup in the new ones. It's definitely poppier than the OG. The sweet spot's in a different place than the OG SuperCourt. They're very, very different, really, honestly.
Yeah.
But I also wanted the aesthetics to keep. I like the retro aesthetic, and so our extra colorways, kind of continue to do the non-traditional colorways.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge fan of the OG. Folks, subscribe to the channel, because I'm the slowest reviewer out in the whole YouTube universe, but I am going to be working on a SuperCourt, the new ones, breakdown. So subscribe if you want to hear my thoughts. I think it's really cool to have a Gen 2 thermoformed option launching off of the spirit of the Gen 1, because some folks really like that Gen 2 feel compared to Gen 1 feel. And so I'm excited to hit with them. I'm sure I'm trying not to make eye contact, folks, because I've had these paddles from Matt for a beat and still haven't gotten my video made. But
I don't expect people, I don't expect reviews. It's just something we want to send out to paddle reviewers, and whenever they get to it and they enjoy it.
Yeah. But I like to get my reviews made and just get the knowledge out there. And so now that brings us to the paddle that you brought to market after that. And everyone, this has a bit of a storied history, and we're gonna see what Matt will share with us. But you dropped a paddle series called the Fire.
Yep.
Folks, I have a pretty detailed review on the channel of this one. And first, before we get into where this paddle sits today, spoiler everyone, this paddle is pretty much discontinued, but we're going to get into that in a bit. But what was the goal for this paddle? Because I love this series. I especially love this shape. Everyone, Chorus's standard shape, which is now in all of their lines, is super unique. And what I love about it is it's a massive sweet spot, but this handle, my grip's built up pretty big, too big for this one. I'm slimming my grip. I've heard it. You build your grips too big. I get it, and I'm taking one over grip off, so we're slimming it down.
Whatever's comfortable for you, though, Matthew. I mean, it's really.
I know, but I have realized it was good. But I'm actually everyone. You can listen to my other podcasts to hear what I'm trying to do this year. But I'm sort of swinging. I'm a control player. I was the other spectrum of what you were talking about with the PPA this weekend. But I'm trying to bring some bang to my game, and I don't need quite as soft hands, and so I'm slimming the grip down. We're going to talk a lot about that on the podcast. Be sure to subscribe. But what I loved about this paddle was you could whip really well with this, and the sweet spot was massive, and then it had just a very unique feel. And what I described this was a power paddle for the masses, because you could activate a lot of power from the baseline or on big swings, but I actually enjoyed the touch, which was pretty wild because this paddle is 14 millimeters, correct?
Yep.
And I'm not always the biggest fan of 14 millimeter paddles. And so where did this paddle come from? What were you trying to do? And then I got a few more questions after that.
Sure. Yeah, so the I had Fire prototypes before we launched the company. So it by far had the most iterations, and almost over a year. Like, because we started R&D obviously before we launched the company. I knew I wanted a power paddle line, so that was kind of my guiding star. But the main thing for me, again, I make paddles for myself, I wanted a singles paddle. So for singles, I'm not as worried about the kitchen. It's really just making sure I have enough oomph from the baseline to direct, my singles shot, so I can be the cat in the cat and mouse. So that's where it started. But I have so many different prototypes of so many different layups. But fiberglass on the top that you can't see with a weave, like a 3K weave that's soft, and titanium / polyester really did that. So yeah, when you look at it, you're thinking, oh, that's a titanium / polyester weave, but you just don't see the thin fiberglass. But if you take a chisel and you want to destroy your paddle, and you just start scraping up, you're going to start to see that the translucent that fiberglass.
This isn't pickleball medicine. We don't tear our paddles apart.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you want to, if you're curious,
we'll get Dustin to do that surgery. But
his singles paddle was essentially my first guiding star.
Okay. Well, I think a happy accident then was that standard shape is so forgiving. It actually, in my opinion, created a very good doubles paddle for someone that loves control but needs some power, and that was the sweet spot for me, especially last year. And so, love the paddle. Congrats, you did something amazing, but it's no longer available. So I know you can't say everything, but there are folks out there that are, I'm sure, thinking about they've heard this story, they're inspired, they're like, oh man, Matt, that guy. I'm OCD about numbers. I like shooting out emails. I don't care about being embarrassed. I want to go make my own paddle. I want to be a paddle company owner. And so there's what can you share? Why isn't this paddle being sold anymore? I know you had a little bit of issues for folks that don't know, paddles to be tournament legal have to be approved by different organizations, and the biggest one is USAP. If you get a USAP stamp, that means you can use that paddle in pretty much any tournament. That's has been the standard bearer. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, there's some controversies, but what can you tell us from your experience? Why isn't this on your site right now?
Well, it did not pass PB Court tests, but that was something we weren't aware of until we went to market. So that's kind of the summary. of what that is. But you can, like, USAP and I had a lot of conversations, and it's been they've been very good conversations. But the story of what happened it's on our site. So if you go to Fire, because we're doing a return program now, but USAP and Chorus released a joint statement about that kind of goes into the details of how it came to be. But the end result, unfortunately, was that we did have to take the SX and the EX off the market immediately, and then the HX gets a sunset only because it was approved in the old way before November, before they started requiring PB core testing for anything submitted after November, which SX and EX were submitted after November, because you have to have a lead paddle get approved before you do any similarities. So it just so happened that the Fire happened on that dividing line. So the HX got approved and we had to wait, and then it was approved in early November. So then we sent the SX and EX in for approvals, got them, went to market, and then due to things that you can read on the site and on the press release, we have to bring them back. So we started and one of my biggest things, and again, I say this in the press release, but it's very authentic. It's not like a PR speak when I say I am in full support of what USAP is trying to do to curb power in our game. I think too much power is bad for the spirit of the sport. I've always said that. And so the irony, this is the irony, is that I did not want the Fire to chase the mod power or any of that top tier. And for anecdotally, most people who play with the Fires agree with that. Like, it's not in that tier. But we're all learning about how the PB core system works and how it's measuring stuff, and so whatever comes next, we'll gonna make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. But right. But I wanted to take care of my customers no matter what. Like that. Yeah. My heart went out to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, folks, it sounds like Matt, full supporter of USAP. I am in agreement. I also agree we need a better power ceiling, because ultimately, if you strip away pickleball's welcoming spirit at open play by just making it racquetball, you're going to see way less interest and from new players. And that's really, like, pickleball has existed a long time, and it wasn't until it boomed at rec play that we've gotten to see new companies come into the mix, new tech get explored and brought to us, and then price competition. And so I think anything we can do to keep the spirit of the sport welcoming and fun is crucial. I personally thought this hit the sweet spot, but there some real regarding power, but obviously there's testing that's being figured out, and it sounds like you're taking this on the chin. And I know that must be tough, but I do want to just reiterate what you were saying, which is, although I want to reiterate what you're saying, which is you're taking care of your customers. And so these paddles had approval when they were released, or seemingly had approval, and then customers bought them, and then some customers, that's super important, and you did basically a buyback program, right? Is that how you would describe?
Yes. Yeah, again, like, I got into this, I made it a business because I love being a part of the joy of pickleball for folks. And so if I bought a paddle that got delisted for any reason, I would feel weird, of anything less than a full refund. And so I had to start there. Like, if this is what you want, we will absolutely honor that, because I wouldn't like it as a customer myself. And one of the questions I get a lot from friends is, like, well, you should ask them if they are planning to use it in tournaments, right? Because if they're not using it in tournaments, it shouldn't matter. And so I agree with that sentiment, but I feel like there's a stigma and it's everywhere. Like, even though we're very small, like, I get jokes like when I show up to tournaments. They go, "Oh, it's like you playing with a legal paddle, Matt. You're bringing out the," and so it sounds really sadistic that people would say that, but like it's fine. But like, this stamp of approval is important for people, and there's a stigma. So even if you're just playing rec play, you don't want to enter. You don't want that sort of noise. So it's not just about tournament approval. There is a stigma. So we wanted to honor that as well. So it doesn't matter. Like, and even people who bought our blemished paddles, we had a blemish sale for like $30 off, and it's like, oh, this is blemished. Can I still get some sort of refund? It's like, no, if you bought a Fire that was brand new from our site, including a brand new blemish paddle, we're just taking care of our customers who want to do that.
Well, sorry that happened for your company and for you. I'm sure that was difficult. I'm sure your customers, like, there's nothing else you could do than do any better by your customers. What is funny though, on my Course Fire giveaway videos, the person that won that paddle actually, Matt offered, "I'll send you a different paddle because this one's no longer tournament approved," and the winner opted, "I want that one." And personally, I think this one is a very reasonable paddle for rec play because we still have mod TAs. We've got the UPA approved Yola paddles, but so I think this is a fine paddle for rec play. I don't think you should look at it as a cheater paddle, but I totally agree 100%. That stamp means a lot, and even for rec play, there's got to be some sense of regulation. Otherwise, rec play is going to become a war zone. And so, USAP is figuring it out. Matt took this on the chin and is still a supporter of what they're trying to do. And so hopefully this won't happen for another paddle company. And I really have to ask, because this must have been a massive financial loss. I know you're donating all the paddles that get sent back to you. You're really embracing that giving paddles away spirit of how you got into this. But I'm sure that giveaway was a bit unplanned and a little difficult. And so did you ever think about just quitting? Like, what went through? I know that must have been a stressful period, but like, what was that like? Did you just want to throw in the towel? I mean, that's a pretty massive setback to do what I thought seemed like a successful release, and then have to pay everyone back and then get these paddles returned to you that you couldn't sell. So did you want to quit? How'd you get through that moment?
I don't think I ever got to the point where I wanted to quit. I think that first week, I mean, January, most of January and the beginning part of February was tough, only because like that's the only thing that I was dealing with, and I couldn't advance other efforts. We definitely have had to change our calendar for this year, and what we planned on doing, we've had to rein that in. I definitely didn't want to quit. It was tough that first week, just because there's such a flood of return requests that we were processing. It was really overwhelming. And and then the next week, when all of the paddles started returning, it was rough. But I will say, there were so many emails during, like, some people are just like, I heard about the delisting, please can I have a return? Yeah, great. There were people writing sentences and some paragraphs of how they loved the paddle. And I cannot express enough how much those comments, and they were still asking for a return. And again, absolutely do that. Absolutely. I want to take care of you. But those emails of encouragement and how much the paddle meant to them, because in my mind, the Fire didn't, the Fire did great. Like, it was selling great, but it didn't really get into people's echelon of like power paddles of the year and stuff like that. It was just fine. I'm not trying to win contests, but I was just reminded through those emails why I do this. And so, no, I never really wanted to quit, but man, those emails, if you took your time out to send me an extra sentence or two about what the Fire meant to you and calling it special, and it's like, this is not unlike anything, like that stuff meant so much to me, not because it's like I made a good paddle, but it's wonderful to like be a part of somebody else's joy. So that's the stuff that animates me and gets me out of bed in the morning, like being a part of the joy of pickleball. That's what I started with. That's why I wanted to do this. And the fact that even through this unfortunate circumstance, I still got to do that with this paddle, and hopefully the next thing will have the same sort of stories.
Well, I mean, I think that's awesome. I think everyone starts off in pickleball for one reason or another, but I feel the thing that really keeps people into pickleball, a big part of it is the community, and I'm glad to hear that your customers appreciate what you're bringing to the table. And once again, I think we've got to support paddle makers like you, companies offering innovative tech at budget prices. And I think you do a really good job of really building a relationship with your customers, not only through your products and all the little goodies that you throw in with every paddle purchase, but you've got a super, like, an enviable social media presence. One day I'll be as good on Instagram as you are. And so I do think building that relationship, I have a question for you about advice for people getting into the paddle business. But I think one thing I think you do really well that other paddle company owners or people wanting to get into that is you have to build a personal relationship with your customers and your potential customers however you can. So if that's through social media, emails, what you put on your website, but really if you're going to, as a consumer, if we're looking for a reason to, if we're not going with the big boys for whatever reason, if we don't want to spend $250 on a paddle, we need to have a reason to take a chance to have some trust for a smaller company. And that's watching reviews, trying to play test when you can or demo when you can. But another part is we're buying into the company and the people behind it. And I think you do a really good job of putting a face to Chorus. It's probably helpful that it's close to, if not a one-man band. I'm sure that won't be for long. But on that note, like, you've hit the milestone 1 year, and we're gonna wrap up, Matt. I know you got places to be, but really appreciate you taking the time. But what? Well, actually, before I end that last question, I do have to ask, what's the Fire's future? Is this thing gonna see the light of day, like the daylight, in some other form? What can you tell us? Our viewers are dying to know. I have a little info, but share what you can.
Sure. We are definitely already at work on a brand new power paddle. In fact, 3 different prototypes are on their way to me right now. The aim is going to be my twist on Gen 3. It's not exactly like what's out there. I see some benefits of how some Gen 3s are done. So one of my buddies, Justin from Pickleball, etc., we were talking once, and he said something to the effect of, what's going to come from Fire's ashes? And it's like a phoenix rises from the Fire's ashes. And I'm like, I cannot not call the next paddle Phoenix. So it's Project Phoenix, and most likely that's what the paddle will be called, will be the Chorus Phoenix. So we are hard at work on prototypes. I don't anticipate the iteration process is going to be near as well. It better not be as long as the Fire's prototype process was, just because I had other stuff that we almost tried that is probably going to bring back up again. So, and if you get 1 or 2 of the different Preludes at random, if you buy a paddle, you might see a little bit of what might go into the Phoenix.
All right. So Pickleball Etc. helped with the naming of what's coming next after the fire, the Phoenix. And so I'm excited. And then on that note, as we wrap up, it's your birthday, 1 year, huge milestone for any endeavor, let alone a business. And so I wanted to see, do you have any advice for folks that are thinking about getting in the paddle business specifically? Lessons learned, pitfalls to avoid. We've gone over a few already, but anything, you sit here, you made it 1 year. Is there one little nugget of wisdom that you can share to someone either thinking about getting into the paddle business or is already in it and maybe going through some struggles?
This is 100% my opinion, is really ask yourself why you want to get in. Is it to try to get a piece of the pie of such a, large market that keeps growing? Or is it because you see an actual need of something that does not exist? You want to bring something to the table that you think can be really unique, but ultimately that's secondary. Like, if you're going to start a business, that's a lot. It's a lot of work, particularly if you find success, which I'm sure you would want to find success in a business you start. Don't be afraid to ask questions. But man, again, the basic is if you do not love what you are doing, it is very unlikely it will be successful. So if it's all just about, I want to capture some of the cash, one, it's hard to do that anymore just because of how much approvals have gone through, like the prices have gone up. But because you love it. You want to bring something that's your own that you can't find anywhere else. And that's not just worth the money investment. It's worth the investment in time because there's so many extra costs and processes and time that goes into actually launching something that is somewhat noticeable on the internet.
So it sounds like, that sounds like good advice for pretty much any endeavor, which is you see it, you have a need that you think you have a specific need. And if you have that need and there's not a solution out there on the market, there are probably other people's that have that same need searching for a solution. So, do it for yourself first. Not only for that need, but not necessarily to chase money because it's a hard business for sure. And so that means being unique. And then it sounds like going back to who you are, which is you're a curious person that doesn't mind looking stupid, that doesn't mind asking questions that other people might be afraid to ask out of fear of appearing dumb or uninformed. And so being curious and being willing to just ask questions seems like good advice for me. I'm gonna write that down for myself. And then I did want to do one more follow-up because I know you're about to go do family time, spring break's coming. How do you balance family? You've told us you have not that this isn't a real job, but another job on top of this job. How do you balance family, work, running a side hustle of a paddle company? And then this is what I really want you to explain. How do you keep pickleball fun? So how do you balance all of this, all these different things in your life, but pickleball stays fun? I'm assuming it is fun for you still.
It is.
So,
oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. No, you say that out loud, and I'm thinking, man, through everything it's taken to be overwhelmed by like success and fulfillment, because most of my job has become fulfillment and shipping, and my wife Emily has been phenomenal at organizing my chaos brain in our loft. I used to be fulfilling out of cartons that just shipped to us, and so now we have shelves and like organization, and so it's like, yeah. Anyway, so
how do you do the balance? What's one tip or a couple? What's an insight you could share?
So margins, like it's very, and obviously I could be doing this better at all, but like we have specific family time every night. Like we go into our theater room to make sure we're all in the same room together with our phones down and watching Modern Family or like any sort of like show that somehow has a concentric circles crossing over of all of our interests. So like because I've got an 11 and 14-year-old girl and then obviously my wife, so a house full of girls. Yeah, it's really just being very intentional and scheduling. Like, I literally schedule family things and almost everything on my calendar to remind me to do things. And I have no shame in that, but like be intentional about scheduling time with family. And I usually try to keep, when I get home from work, my day job until 9 or 10. So a lot of the work last year was done after 10 a.m. And just learn how to just not get sleep. That's fine. That's how that works.
After 10 p.m. So yep. Being a night owl. But I think so scheduling and knowing what you're doing with your time, yep. So it doesn't just fly away. And pro tip that I've learned, everyone, is sharing a Google Calendar with your life partner.
We have a shared calendar so we can always see what's happening.
Because it's hard to you need to be on the same page, literally, when it comes to calendar pages.
But pickleball's fun because I also make sure that I schedule non-prototype testing pickleball.
Oh, I feel you on that with the paddle testing. So
play for fun, like yes. I have to make sure I schedule those times as well. So
life balance, and then make sure you dedicate some pickleball time to why you got into it in the first place, which is to have fun. So it's not always about training. It's not always about drilling. You need to make sure you're having fun. And then on the second part of that question, which I'm not sure if I asked already, but we're talking birthday reflections and wishes. And so what's a wish? What's a wish for Chorus? What do you want to see with the company moving forward?
It just expand into different, wider retail channels is one goal. But the next thing is like do a better job at being local. Honestly, I played so much time just trying to catch up to Shapeshifter demand most of last year to shipping everywhere in the States, right? So it's not just about going into different countries this year and having bigger supply chains, which involves me getting a partner or like somebody else that's better at planning that stuff and has the time because I don't. But really, like, it's wild to me. Like, people like, I had no idea Chorus was in Texas, and we're in DFW, a ton of facilities here. And so my local community is so important to me. So my super local McKinney people know of Chorus, but like, I want to do a better job at raising awareness just in DFW that, hey, I think people can take pride that there's a paddle company grown out of, Texas or DFW. So I want to concentrate on that this year. And I want to start high school districts. Like if I did this as my full-time job, one of my main initiatives would be bringing pickleball as an actual school sport to high schools.
Oh, that was my last question, which is if you had a general wish for pickleball. So,
that's it. Youth.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough when all the really young people start playing. They're gonna destroy. But I agree, and it sounds like for Chorus, you'd love to see Texas get some more of those paddles. So open play, get ready. Let's out in Texas. Let's see some Chorus paddles on those racks. And don't forget about Arkansas. That's where I was born and raised. I don't think they have any paddle companies out there. So let's get some Chorus up there. And then really, I just want to thank you so much, Matt, for joining.
Sure.
And then it sounds like you've got some fun family time coming up. And so that's awesome. Is there anything else on the horizon that you wanted to mention?
Not necessarily for now. I'm dabbling in some new types of like perimeter weight, and like edge guard stuff that's using materials that's not on the market. I'm even like dipping my toe in like tournament snacks and tournament food. So it's like, because like there's, again, but this is all just like, there's nothing that's that's what I really want to eat very small between matches. That gives me stuff. Like, I just have a bunch of things that I always pack in my tournament bag. Whatever. That's like a whole ridiculous thing. But again, we'll see.
Matt's curiosity is insatiable, and it's going to hopefully yield to some good courtside snacks. And before we wrap up, happy birthday, Matt.
Thank
Congratulations.
You. Thank you.
The Prelude sale, once again, if you buy a paddle from Chorus during the Prelude during March 20th to March 26th, you will get a nice little one of Matt's little experiments in your shipment, and that's March 20th to 26th. Every paddle order will get a free paddle. And then I wanted to also highlight the OG Shapeshifter, a paddle that was super, super loved last year. Will be 20% off on March 20th only. Right. That paddle will also be getting a Prelude, not necessarily this one. Don't forget about those really creepy ones.
I can't take requests.
No requests, people. Don't send Matt that email. But send him. He likes those other emails about you're doing a good job, and Matt does care about his customers, and that's great to see. And then on that sale, don't forget to use promo code MatthewK. And then Matt, I once again wanted to thank you for hopping on. This is my first interview with a founder, with a pickleball company owner, so I really appreciate you taking a leap of faith. Do you have any last words?
Not really. Just look for more news on our Phoenix, and then buy a paddle for our birthday, and I'll give you guys a present in a Prelude. But
awesome.
I appreciate it, Matthew.
And then Matt, don't forget to follow his social media. I'll be sure to leave that down in the description. He's super active on Instagram. And then don't forget to like and subscribe. Like this video, comment down below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We do reviews. We're doing this podcast. It's at Matthew K. Pickleball. And then I hope you get to pickle soon. And just don't forget, it's about having fun.